Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Abraham. I'm going to be presenting Get Accepted to Columbia Business School today. I've been an MBA admissions consultant since 1994. You can see I've been quoted on numerous media outlets regarding MBA admissions. I'm also the host of Admissions Straight Talk and the co-author of MBA Admissions for Smarties. I'm looking forward very much to sharing my 25 years of admissions experience with you today. Before we begin, I want to mention a few to-dos that will help you maximize your time here and one that will help us improve the webinars. Number one, if you've not yet downloaded your webinar worksheet, take a second to do so and print it out. That's my recommendation. You can use it to take notes, and also I'm going to ask you to write things down at certain points in the webinar. Obviously, if you have a paper handy, it's going to make your life a little easier. You can also do it online if you prefer. I will also ask questions during the presentation and ask you to raise hand in response. You can do so by clicking on the hand icon, two icons underneath the horizontal orange arrow on your control panel. Waving your hand in front of your webcam will not do it. We're going to use the question window for both your questions and your answers. So if I ask an open-ended question, please respond in the question window. If you have questions at any point in the webinar, please post your question in the question window. I will respond to it. I will choose the ones that have the broadest applicability at the end of the webinar, and we'll have a Q&A session there. And we'll also be joined by a couple of accepted consultants, and I'll tell you about that more later. Number 4, you can win. We're going to have a contest towards the end of the webinar based solely on content presented during the webinar, so stay tuned. And I probably will provide, well, anyway, the prize is a free consultation with me. When you leave, you're going to receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. We value your feedback. As a matter of fact, we are constantly improving our webinars based on participant feedback. I also want to mention a new thing that we're experimenting with. We've done the last few webinars, and that is allowing you to speak your questions. So please do post your question in the question window so I can know what you want to talk about. And then if you do not want to be unmuted, let's say you are in that open office or you just have very poor internet, just say, no, don't unmute, okay? And I will, if I like your question, I'll ask it for you. And if, so whether you mute yourself or don't mute yourself won't have any impact on whether I choose your question or not. Now let's test your hand-raising skill. Please raise your hand if you're here because business school, and specifically Columbia's MBA program, will launch you on your way to the career of your dreams. Okay, we're getting a lot of hand raising here. Okay, great. And most of you are here for the right reasons. Okay, wonderful. And you figured out how to raise your hands. That's also good. Last housekeeping item, and the participant's favorite, Accepted has a special for today's webinar registrants, and I'm going to tell you about it now so that you won't be anxiously waiting to find out later. You can save $150 off your next order, any order over $1,000 at accept.com/n@cbs. The coupon code is MBA now, and this is good through the 15th. So if you don't have to use that, the service for the 15th, but you do have to purchase it before the 15th. Before we start, I want to get a little bit better sense of where you're at. And that would be, first of all, where are you located? So in the question window, can you please tell me where you're located? City and state if you're in the United States, city and country if you're outside the United States. San Francisco, okay. Toronto, Canada. Bangalore, San Francisco. Mississauga, Ontario. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. Santiago, Chile, India. Dhaka, Bangladesh. Bangalore, India. Pune, India. Anybody else? Anybody in Los Angeles? I got a couple of Californians, but about as close as we're getting right now. And we don't have any Europeans today. Mumbai, India. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I also would like to learn where you're at in the application process. So here's a little poll. The options are applying this application cycle, planning to apply next year or later, or trying to decide whether to apply to CBS, and you can choose more than one, as some of you I think are doing. Maybe you can't. Looks like you can't. Which best identifies your motivation for being here, I guess, is the question. All right. We're at 65% having voted. Can we get it over 80? 5, 4, 3, 2, come on, vote. 1. All right, I'm going to close the poll and share the results with 65% having voted. 59% are applying this cycle. 24% are next cycle. And 18% are trying to figure out whether they should apply to CBS. Okay, fine, thank you. So let's dive in. Columbia prides itself on being at the very center of business, and indeed that is Columbia's tagline. And indeed, it's located a short subway ride away from Midtown Manhattan, Fifth Avenue, Madison Avenue, and of course, Wall Street. New York City is a leading business center, if not the leading business center internationally for finance, entrepreneurship, fashion and luxury goods, media and entertainment, advertising, and healthcare. With recruiting strengths in consulting and finance, special programs in value investing and retail, ties to Madison Avenue and the entrepreneurial beehive that is New York City and Columbia University, it's not surprising that Columbia is hard to get into. It boasts very competitive stats, and these are for the class that entered in 2019. An average GMAT of 727, which is down from 2018 732, but up from 2017 724. The middle 80th percentile range went down 10 points at the bottom, but the GPA range, average and range, are unchanged from last year. And from my experience over time, Columbia certainly looks at the GMAT, but for the last 5 to 10 years, I believe it has de-emphasized the GMAT a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, as the numbers show. I visited Columbia several times and also interviewed Columbia admissions team representatives for Acceptance podcast. And the takeaways from all of these interactions, and the top one, by the way, wasn't a podcast, it was a webinar on Ask Me Anything. But the takeaway from all these interactions is that Columbia wants people who will be genuinely excited about being in New York City and being part of the energized city that never sleeps. People who not only can put up with New York City, which would be me, but who will thrive and take advantage of the opportunities that New York City offers. People who want to build on Columbia's heritage and be a proud part of the Columbia community and not be distracted by New York City. It wants people who want to be taught by cutting-edge researchers while at the same time engaging with leading practitioners. People who will know how to take advantage of what Columbia Business School offers. Now, for the plan for the remainder of our webinar, about 50 minutes together, is to go through the 4-part framework that I've developed for MBA admissions and apply it to Columbia Business School. You can use this strategy framework on other top MBA programs too, but the tactics and the focus of this webinar is going to be just Columbia. Now, you're not going to get into Columbia Business School by waving a magic wand, and a dab of makeup won't do it either. You need to submit a meaty, substantive application. And by substance, I mean competitive qualifications and an effective presentation of those qualifications. In other words, you need to demonstrate fit. Your overriding aim is to show that you belong at Columbia Business School. And I want to ask you now in the question window, please, how do you intend to show that you belong? Obviously, you've given some thought to it, but if you could briefly tell me in the question window, how do you intend to show that you belong at Columbia Business School? In the question window, please. No. Through our previous work experience and qualifications, okay. Okay, Najendra, I hope I don't mispronounce anybody's name. Being authentic and diversifying my extracurricular experiences, taking additional courses to strengthen my lower GPA. Sounds like good steps to take. Relevant professional development courses, volunteering, etc. Okay, Simon. Prove that I know a lot about the school-specific programs, such as the value investing program, that I will contribute directly to them. That's part of it. That's part of it, Kwaku. Yes? Anybody else? I'm going to go on. Columbia actually says in its website Well, here's one. Unique background that includes international management experience, working in high-tech companies, and having a proven growth mindset. Very good. Academic performance through low GMAT, though not through, low. Professional certification, partial completion. That's part of it. Okay, a little bit, my question is unfair because I'm going to spend the next 50 minutes talking about it, or at least half hour, and I'm asking you to put it in a short blurb in a box. But let's go through what Columbia says it's looking for. Columbia is looking for intellectually driven people from diverse educational, economic, social, cultural, and geographic backgrounds. Our students share a record of achievement, strong leadership, and the ability to work in teams. So the first thing in my framework, and you can relate this to the quote I just cited, is you want to demonstrate that you can do the work and excel. You need to show the intellectual drive, curiosity, ability to succeed in demanding curriculum, because that's the first requirement per CBS, right? They want to see that intellectual drive. Now, the easiest way to show that you can do the work and excel, or that you have this intellectual drive, is through your undergraduate transcript and test score. And ideally, you want to be at or above average for exhibit students for both the grades and test score. If you aren't, how can you convince Columbia to accept you with, let's start first with below average grades. Somebody mentioned below average grades. Actually, yeah, Lloyd mentioned a lower GPA. Realize that averages are what they are because some people were accepted with below average stats. But the farther away you are below the average, and if both your grades and test scores are below average, the harder it is for you to demonstrate you can do the work and compete in a highly competitive applicant pool. If you need to mitigate lower than desired grades, I strongly recommend that you listen to the podcast, 5 A's for Your Low GPA, at accept.com/137. By the way, we will be sending out via email after the webinar the URLs that I'm mentioning here. Okay, so don't worry about that if you don't catch them. Now, a high test score can mitigate a low GPA. For the top 10, including Columbia, you want to ideally, this is the ideal, be at 80th percentile in both quant and verbal, whether your grades are good or below average. If you're not sure, if you're around that, again, this is an ideal. It's not, a minimum or a floor. But if you are significantly below that number, then you might want to consider a retake. If you're not sure whether to retake or not, please see that GMAT score. The first resource on the slide is a short video. The second one is a full-blown webinar where I go through what one should consider when deciding whether to retake or not. For more on low academic stats that may not show your intellectual drive and what to do about them, please see another webinar on exactly what to do about low stats. The bottom line here is if you have the high stats, great, check that box. Somehow, someway, you need to show that you have that intellectual drive. You must demonstrate that you can do the work effectively and not struggle with either basic math or communications. So that's part one of the framework. Part two, have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Columbia and how it will help you realize your dreams for getting an MBA. Now, why is this important? Anybody? Why is your future post-MBA goal important to Columbia? Simon, demonstrate fit. It's definitely one element in fit. Very good. Anybody else? To show that you are committed and have clear goals. Good. All right, well, I'll give you two reasons. To show you will succeed, to show that they can help you succeed. That's the big thing. There's two reasons, okay? One is Columbia asks you for the information. Then you have to have an answer. And Nina, you got it. Show why you need Columbia to help you to achieve your goals. That's right, Nina. The school wants to help you succeed, and they have to know how you define success. And yes, Simon, it is one element in fit. Columbia asks one short essay question, 50 characters, and then has a long essay about goals. We'll discuss the essay question later, but the short answer question is a classic MBA goals question. What do you want to do? That's the function. And industry. In what industry do you want to do it? Columbia even helpfully provides some examples of the short response they're looking for. Columbia also asks somewhere else in the application in their future employment section, so very similar, but they're really, I think, doing that more for statistical purposes. But clearly they want to know what you intend to do, and they want to know that you know what you intend to do. So if you have wishy-washy goals, you must clarify them for Columbia. You have to clarify them for other reasons too, in my opinion, but for this application, it's really important. Now, Columbia's essay question is, through your resume and recommendations, we have a clear sense of professional path to date. What are your career goals over the next 3 to 5 years, and what in your imagination would be your long-term dream job? So again, Columbia is putting a lot of emphasis on your goals, both your immediate post-MBA goal and the longer-term goal. And the reason is, as Kwaku kind of indicated, not entirely on point. I think Nina was closer to it. They want to know they can help you succeed. They need to know how you define success, and that means you need to have a definition, which is your goal. Admissions should be able to connect the dots between where you've been and what you want to do via Columbia's program, career strengths, and extracurricular activities. Now, I want to mention the story of a particular consultant, Esmeralda Cardinal, who gave a rejection review to a client who came to us after getting rejected. Esmeralda previously served as an associate director of admissions at Yale and as the director of admissions at Michigan Broad. In any case, she was reviewing this rejected application. She said she would have rejected him too, because his goal made no sense. The fellow had been advised by well-meaning friends to articulate a goal that was not at all related to what he had done or even to what he wanted to do. But these well-meaning friends told them that X was the end goal. Needless to say, we advised him to articulate an authentic goal that really got him, that he was truly passionate about and that he could be enthusiastic about, that was also connected to his past and to his target schools, and he was accepted to an M7 program. So don't be deluded by what is told to you as the end goal. Articulate your authentic goal and show how it does tie to Columbia, as somebody said in response to my question. So that's part 2 of the framework. Part 3, show that you share Columbia's values and have the character it seeks. Now, Columbia, as we mentioned, its mantra is at the very center of business. And that is its value. That is something that it feels is very distinctive and beneficial about its program. Its location, the advantage of being in New York City and part of Columbia Business School. Now, what does that mean to you? What does that advantage mean to you? In the question window, please. Adjunct professors, good, Simon. Anybody else? All right. Well, this was up. Here we go. Okay. A genuine interest in taking advantage of the culture, geolocation, and network within New York City. Good, Lawrence. Access to industry leaders. Excellent, Archie. We can access to numerous companies. Good. Accessibility. Ooh, access seems to be the key point here. Lectures by corporate executives. Good, Ahmed. Right. Accessibility, ability to interact with many diverse people. Excellent, Lloyd. All right. If you listen to the interviews that are on the screen right now, which are the podcast interviews, it comes through loud and clear, and you're all right. Access is clear. Access to speakers and conferences, access to master's classes, access to executives, access to companies that are headquartered in New York City or certainly have large offices in New York City, opportunities for consulting projects and networking. Now, as an applicant, you need to know what are the opportunities you can take advantage of and how they will help you achieve your goals, but also when have you taken advantage of these kinds of activities in the past? Maybe you want to highlight them in the boxes in the application or in your resume or somewhere like that. And do you have experience that you can contribute from extracurricular activities in organizing some of these events? And then, as somebody mentioned, the cultural richness of New York City, the music and the arts, and it's an incredibly multicultural environment. When have you thrived in a multicultural environment? Are you going to be able to bring that out? The challenge of New York City is distraction. Are you able to balance lots of stimulation and opportunities and prioritize what's important to you? Another value at Columbia is putting theory into practice. Columbia has Nobel Prize winners on the faculty, and leading business CEOs are accessible for presentations, conference, and meetings with students. So you have this concept again of point of conversion for thought and practice leaders. And the curriculum allows you to put theory into practice. How? Well, again, there are consulting projects, social enterprise and global projects. There are master's classes. There are in-semester internships, which are fairly, not unique to Columbia, but are fairly rare. The extracurricular activities that allow you to practice the theory, like the 5x5x5 Student Value Investment Fund, which is a student-run fund. There's the Columbia Startup Lab, where you can actually work on your startup idea while in B school and then apply to the startup lab to launch it upon graduation. There's obviously numerous clubs. At this point, I'd like you to write down for yourself examples of when you have put theory into practice, either turned a class concept or idea into and applied it to a problem or situation. When have you demonstrated the seed of an entrepreneurial mindset? When have you demonstrated multicultural fluency or adaptability? Just this is for yourself. You don't have to put it in the question window. Ahmed, good question. I think NYU is also very proud of its location. And there are similarities. Okay, good question. Columbia is also very proud of its entrepreneurial mindset. And that's not just about how many students start new businesses, although Columbia Business School has access to the Lang Entrepreneurial Center, Columbia Startup Labs, and the growing entrepreneurial ecosystem of New York City. It's about the entrepreneurial mindset is about equipping students to assess opportunities and based on that assessment, initiate a response to that opportunity, regardless of your business path. So that could be you working on your own startup. It could be you working on somebody else's startup. It could be you working with a mature technology company or a corporation in any industry. Do you have that entrepreneurial mindset where you can assess and take advantage of opportunities? And you know how you show that? You bring out examples of when you initiated and innovated. You don't have to have had a startup, but you could have seen an opportunity and gone for it. Now, Columbia is also very global, although I don't think that's as well articulated on the site. It is important at Columbia. New York City is an international financial capital, if not the international financial capital. It's an incredibly multicultural city. 47% of the students that entered in 2019 are international citizens, meaning that they either have a foreign passport or in addition to a U.S. passport, have a passport from another country. Columbia offers global immersions, consulting projects, and social enterprise projects. How will you take advantage of these global opportunities if they are important to the achievement of your goals? That's something that you should think about and be prepared to see whether it fits into your application or be prepared to discuss in an interview. And where can you demonstrate multicultural fluency? Do you have international work experience, extensive personal travel, a multicultural background or experience? And then there's the community aspect of Columbia. And this, again, came through really, really loud and clear in all my interactions with the admissions committee. They are very proud that they're a team. They're very proud of their community. And in order to show fit with that part of Columbia, I think you need to show when you have contributed to your community. And of course, there is an activity section of the application. It could be in an essay, but that's something that you need to be prepared to think about and perhaps to include in your application. Now, there's a big difference between mouthing platitudes, spitting back websites, and showing that you actually share the values. The former, the spitting back websites and mouthing platitudes, that's just a cheap form of trickery. There's no authenticity to it. There's no credibility to it. It's basically spamming, and it's similar to spamming them with phrases from their website or mantra-like repetition of at the center of XYZ. It just will not do it. Trust me, they are highly experienced and they see through that. But examples in your essays, bullet points in your resume, and examples in your recommenders' recommendations, your responses to interview questions, what you include in the activity history should in total show that you both have what Columbia is looking for and can benefit from what Columbia offers. To me, Columbia wants to see how you will thrive on its campus and in its city, and that you have the grit and discipline to make the most of it all while flourishing in the craziness that is Manhattan and contributing to Columbia's community. Now, your letters of recommendation and your responses to the interview question must also demonstrate these qualities. And what I'd like you to do now is on your worksheet or a piece of paper or a computer file, whatever you want, write down 3 to 5 ways in which you would demonstrate you share Columbia Business School's values. Again, those include, you don't have to share all of them, but you should share at least some. And that would be ability to take advantage of New York City and the access it provides, or Columbia and the access it provides, multiculturalism, entrepreneurial mindset, a global perspective, and then a community contributor. So you don't have to keep writing. You don't have to spit back the phrases at all. You have to show, demonstrate, reveal that you share those qualities through your past behavior. Another warning, if you, like so many applicants, focus on rankings and brand, that can really obscure this fit aspect of admissions, as well as contribute to you focusing on the wrong things. And the result will be, if you can quote rankings better than a preacher can quote the Bible, you have a problem. You're focusing on the wrong things. Go spend that time that you're spending memorizing rankings, talking to current students, corresponding with current students, researching the website, and really learning about the programs you're applying to. It'll benefit you far more than learning the minutia of the rankings. And if you do focus on the rankings, the result will be that you blend in. You want to stand out in a positive way. You want to be the gem, not the stone. And you want to show that you have distinctive experience and perspective to contribute. Because Columbia has lots of applicants and it can be choosy. At current application volume, it rejects more than 4 out of every 5 applicants. And that leads to my last strategic point. You want to be able to demonstrate you'll be able to contribute to your learning team, cluster, and the greater Columbia community, and ultimately make the school proud. Columbia wants students who are prepared to have an impact, both at Columbia Business School and when they leave Columbia. To show that you belong, reveal a habit of impact and teamwork through your essays, resume, activity history, interview, and letters of recommendation. So, do you have a history of successful collaboration? Have you contributed in the past? Where have you made a difference? And I'd like you to respond to that last question. Where have you made a difference in the question window? And the reason I'm suggesting this is I'm going to comment on your responses and give you suggestions for how you should improve them, if improvement is possible. Okay? So go ahead and do that. I have a few ideas of my own I'm going to share. You keep writing, but put it in the question window now. There's a little latency here. When, for example, if you raise $50,000 through your fraternity charity drive, or you raise money in some other way for a new community center, you let an implementation for your company, your work, that increase sales or cut costs or shorten time to market by 10%. Okay, so here we're getting some responses from you now. Archie wrote, centralize the process and create an efficiency of 45% per month. I assume that would mean that you increased efficiency. That would be very good. Obviously, you would say a little bit more about the process, but that's a very good example. Others want to say something where they feel they contributed in the past. Worked with president and led a team and lead a team of volunteers and collaborated with various organizations to create a library for underprivileged girls in remote rural Sindh. I'm not sure where that is. Okay, I would be more specific. I would quantify how many underprivileged girls were served by this library. Okay, what impact did you have? Did they learn how to read better? Did they go to school? But obviously just creating the library for these girls is in and of itself a good step. But if you could go beyond hundreds of girls, wonderful, wonderful. Great. That's very good. To the extent you can quantify your achievement or even talk about greater impact. So did it motivate them to go to high school, for example? That would be even better. Okay. Rihanna wrote, set all undergrad labs within 1/3 of the budget. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Assisted designing children's schools curriculum for Rohingya refugees. How many? How many children were served by this? Were they able to continue in school where they couldn't have been in school otherwise? Tripled my dad's business revenue. Excellent. Okay, my point here is you want to be specific, and to the extent possible, you want to quantify your impact when possible. 200,000, fantastic. Having a unique product design and management background experience, sharing knowledge and empowering the next generation of product designers as an adjunct professor, driving a successful $100 million product overhaul during my international executive assignment in Bangalore, India. That sounds pretty good. However, when you talk about your achievements, I'm not sure that you have to, for me, it's okay. You have to include the bit about your background. You just need to describe what you did. You may, obviously not in this box, but you may also want to talk about some challenges that you overcame rather. As the VP of our family business, I led a turnaround of our business that has yielded a reversal of fortune, saving 25 jobs in the process. Good, good. Okay. I'm going to continue. Now let's touch on work experience. Some of the examples you gave were work experience. Some of them were more community service. Work experience is obviously critical when you're applying to graduate business schools and the MBA program. The average amount of work experience is 5 years, but the middle 80th percent is 3 to 8 years, and 99% have more than 1 year of work experience. Now, there are millions upon millions of people that have this amount of work experience in the world. Only a tiny percentage of them will be qualitatively competitive. So there's competitive quantity of experience, and there's a competitive quality of experience. Quality trumps quantity. No reference to our president. Quality shows leadership, impact, grit, initiative, and entrepreneurial tendencies that Columbia values, or at least some of those qualities, and above average progression on the job. That's absolutely critical when applying to a top MBA program. Now, what I was trying, most of you were actually pretty specific in your examples that you gave, which is great, but I want to show you something right now. We're going to do a little thought experiment, and you can here definitely respond to more than one option. How many of you work in finance or have worked since college in finance or consulting? How many of you have traveled outside your home country, either in college or since college? How many of you have volunteered in college or since? And none of the above. Okay. And if none of these apply to you, please just write it down, okay? Just click the have none of the above is actually what I'm saying. And all right, we have, oh, come on, more of you can vote than that. 57% having voted, 60%, let's get it up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to close the poll, share the poll. And the results of those who voted, 63% of you have worked in finance or consulting, 89% have traveled outside their home country, and volunteering, 95%. Great. And I guess the rest of you didn't even want to click none of the above. All right, so let me, wait. I did share the results. Okay, so we're going to hide this. And here's another poll for you. Okay. How many of you have, and again, please click the none of the above apply, worked in strategy consulting for Bain & Company, worked as a financial analyst for a big pharmaceutical company, volunteered at a summer camp for teens with autism. Okay, we have 77% haven't voted. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to close the poll and share the results. So none of you worked for Bain. 4% worked as a financial analyst for a pharmaceutical company. 13% volunteered as of those who voted at a summer camp for teens with autism, and 92% of you said that none of the above applied. Now let me ask you, in the question window, please, what is the difference between the two sets of questions? In the question window, please. Exactly. Lloyd, Simon, Art Cheat, Mount Lawrence, you all have it. General versus specific, right? And second question, second set is letter says more specific. Exactly. And what happens when I either talk in specifics or you talk in specific? What happens? In the question window, please. More impact, good. It applies to fewer people. Exactly, Lloyd. It differentiates you. Your story comes to life. It has proof. Good. Life, right? It narrows the focus and makes the outcome more clearly understood. Yeah, but mostly it distinguishes you. You individuate. You become individuals. So when you describe what you do, are you going to write, are you an engineer or a transportation engineer? Are you a consultant or a healthcare consultant or a Bain healthcare consultant? Did you volunteer or did you found a new organization to address a specific need in your community? However you define your community. I also think that specifics in general are more impactful. So let's review the 4 strategic steps you need to think about before and while putting together your application. Number 1, you need to show that you can do the in-class work and excel. Number 2, have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Columbia and how you intend to use it. 3, shared values. 4, demonstrate that you will be able to contribute to your team, your cohort, Columbia's community, and ultimately make the school proud. Now let's look at the specific elements of the Columbia application. I already touched briefly on the grades and transcripts as well as the short answer question. Let's look at the other elements, starting with the job and activity history. Now, you must make the most of the 1 to 2 page resume to show impact and contribution. For Columbia, in the job history, it's pretty much the facts and nothing but the facts. There's little room to elaborate on motivations, lessons learned, or significant experiences. Columbia asks you to provide up to 3 roles, and that's full-time employment only. So pay close attention to the details on reporting salary and bonuses in this section because it can sometimes mess people up. The employment history should show that you belong in an institution that is proud of its culture of engagement. Focus, even in the box that says duties and responsibilities, focus as much as possible on your achievements and not mere descriptions of your responsibilities. You know, the box asks for duties and responsibilities. Show how you went beyond what you were required to do. Discuss your, I was responsible to do A, but I really did A+. That's what you want to do. And the same is pretty much true of the activity window. List up to 3 collegiate extracurricular activities and up to 3 post-collegiate extracurricular activities in order of importance. Quantify your impact whenever possible, and obviously be succinct. You just don't have a lot of room. Now, the essays. Columbia has 3 required essays. The essays should complement the other elements of the application, in other words, add to them, and each other as they answer the questions posed, as you answer the question posed, and reveal something distinctive and interesting about yourself. So again, you want them to, like puzzle pieces, each to add a different element to the picture of you that's coming through in that application. The essays are great places to show fit and to reveal the qualities that Columbia values. Now, question 1. Through your resume and recommendations, we have a clear sense of your professional path to date. What are your career goals over the next 3 to 5 years, and what in your imagination would be your long-term dream job? Now, you already outlined in your short answer, remember from about half an hour ago, your short-term MBA goal. Your job history and resume, not to mention in essay 3, which we'll get to in a second, give them a good sense of your professional past. And my suggestion to you now is get ready, get set, think. What are you trying to achieve? How do you hope to achieve it? How will being at Columbia Business School enable you to realize those dreams, although you don't have to answer that question in this essay? Now, the first sentence, which isn't on the screen in front of you, is, through your resume and recommendations, we have a clear sense of your professional path to date. Why do you think they include that introductory sentence in the question? I'm going to tell you in this case. Michael Robinson, Associate Director of, exactly, Ahmed, don't repeat that, 100%. In the podcast I mentioned earlier, said, quote, we hope to avoid applicants simply restating their professional path. You got it. This is a future-focused question, and you don't want to waste words, right, Archie? Talk about the future. How would you like your career to develop beyond that post-MBA job? And yes, they do want to know your dreams, so feel free to dream. You don't have to be, don't feel closed in and boxed into what you're sure you can achieve. Dream a little bit, aspire. You could write this essay chronologically, thematically, or start with the dream job as you see it, or the dream, whatever it would be, and then describe how you see your career developing so that it culminates with that job. Obviously, throughout anything that doesn't relate to these points, if it's still too long, focus on what's most important. What it shouldn't be is a copy and paste of a response to another school's goals question. Yes, you can borrow from it. Yes, you can adapt. I know that, but don't copy and paste. Essay 2. Why do you feel Columbia Business School is a good fit for you? Well, obviously, essay 2 should support everything that you wrote in your response to the short-term goal question and essay 1. Why do you want to go to Columbia Business School for your MBA? Note that this is a fairly short essay, half the length of essay 1. How are you going to take advantage of Columbia Business School and its location to achieve your goals and get the most out of your MBA program? What about the distinctive elements of Columbia Business School are you going to take advantage of it? How do you intend to turn Columbia into the bridge to your desired future? Now, you could try a fairly straightforward, given my goals, I intend to do 1, 2, 3. Write about specific clubs that you want to get involved in, events you want to help organize, and the academics that most excite you. Alternatively, you could do like a day in the life that shows you taking an active role in these activities and really shows you doing what you intend to do while at Columbia. So I've given you a couple of suggestions, or I'm sure there are others also out there, but these are a couple of ways to structure that essay. And don't feel boxed in by these suggestions either. The fundamental here, though, is that you need to know the program well enough to convey what is most attractive to you. Now, we talked about specifics in terms of conveying your achievements, but specifics also are important to show that you really have done your homework on the program. Don't write a generic response that basically spits back a video or the website, and don't write in terms of like I've talked academics, recruiting, and network, write in specifics. What do you intend to take advantage of? And if it's something that you take out of this webinar, it probably is too general. You need to look at the website, go through it, and really think, what about Columbia is going to help you achieve your goals? Essay 3, please provide an example of a team failure of which you've been a part. If given a second chance, what would you do differently? Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Okay, who is a leader you admire and why? My apologies. My notes were wrong. Try to answer this question with something not revealed elsewhere. This is a getting to know you question. Columbia wants to see how you think. Again, the why is more important than the who. Which leaders do you admire? Which ones best show the qualities that Columbia is looking for in its students and leaders? Perhaps provide an example of leadership from this individual that exemplifies an entrepreneurial mindset or innovativeness, and discuss what you admire in that individual. Keep in mind that they probably get lots of essays about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, so don't be afraid to write about someone less well known. And then there's the optional essay. An optional essay will allow you to discuss any issues that do not fall within the purview of the required essays. Is there something you would like the school to know that you didn't have room for? You were, I hope this isn't true, but maybe you were sick or hit by a car during your junior year, and that's why your grades dipped then. Or a different kind of challenge, or perhaps more information about an activity or hobby than you have room for elsewhere. The Columbia Business School essay questions allow the admissions committee to see where you're headed and why you want Columbia Business School, and to show the resilience and thoughtfulness in the face of challenge if you use the optional. The rest of the application tells them what you've done in the past. Essays 1 and 2 tells them what you seek for the future. Essay 3 tells them how you view leadership, which again is one of their fundamental values. They help the school see a picture of you. Okay. And then 2 criteria for your recommenders. If you've been working full-time or at least the last 6 months, 1 recommendation should be from your current supervisor, and I'm quoting the instructions now from Columbia. The second recommendation should be from either a former direct supervisor or from another professional associate senior to you who can share their insight on your candidacy. And then it adds, if you're unable to secure a recommendation from your direct supervisor, please submit a statement of explanation in the employment section of your application. My 2 criteria for recommenders are: 1, they have to know you well and be able to write from personal experience about your work. And 2, they have to be willing and able to write a strong positive letter of recommendation for you. And you need to ask them if they're willing to do so. If there's any hesitation, either because they're short on time or they don't have as high opinion of you as you thought, move on and ask somebody else. You can share with them 10 tips for recommenders, which will encourage them to write in specifics and provide examples and do a lot of the things that I've encouraged you to do, but in the recommendation. And you will want to encourage specifics, concrete examples, focus on leadership, initiative, impact, etc., as well as the values, like putting theory into practice and access, etc. Columbia Business School interview. It's an individual interview, personal conversation. It's not meant to be intimidating. It is usually with an alum from Columbia Business School. They want to get to know you as a person. They want to see fit. Is this someone whom they would like in their network? So how do you prepare? Well, we have, again, a couple of resources for you: how to ace your MBA interviews and the personalized mock interviews, which is our one-on-one service, where essentially you have a dress rehearsal with an accepted consultant for your interview. I'll give you a few prep tips now, but there are more in the report. And again, I strongly recommend the dress rehearsal mock interviews. First off, review your Columbia Business School application. If you have the name of the person who's going to interview you, I suggest you Google the alum ahead of time so that you can maybe find some commonalities and create a human connection with him or her. Prepare thoughtful questions to ask, not questions that are answered on the first page of the website, perhaps about the alum's experience at Columbia. Be ready to walk the alum through your resume as well as to respond to behavioral questions like, how did you handle failure, okay? For behavioral questions, use the CAR approach, challenge, action, results, to structure your responses. Take a few seconds to think and then structure your response and then respond. Okay, now let's go back to your goal in submitting an application to Columbia. Show that you belong at Columbia. And we're going to have this little contest now. And the first 2 to answer the next question get a free 15-minute consultation with me. So I hope your fingers are poised over the keyboard. What is Columbia's motto or tagline? Okay, Lawrence and Kwaku, you got it. At the very center of business. Right. Okay, so Rachel, do you have that? Again, it's Lawrence and Kwaku. Okay, great. Let's go on. Now let's review the 4 goals for your application. Number 1, present the academic credential that show you can do the work and excel. 2, have a goal that requires a Columbia MBA. 3, show that you meet Columbia's criteria and share its values. And 4, demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute distinctively to class discussion and teamwork, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud. I'd like to give one final word of advice and a warning. The admissions committee readers are sharp, intelligent professionals. Don't try to fake or fool. The best presentation of you is an authentic reflection of your achievements and dreams, keeping in mind the 4 things that will make Columbia want you. Now, in the question window, I'd like to ask you, what idea, concept, or piece of advice did you find most valuable in the presentation so far? We're going to get to the Q&A in just a couple of minutes. To quantify and be specific about your impact. Great, Lloyd. Thank you. Specificity, okay. Don't worry much about your background. Focus on tangible impact. Okay, Lawrence. I wouldn't, it's not so much that you don't worry about your background, but you have to answer the future-focused questions with a future focus, and you want to quantify the impact that you've had. Essay should be specific. Okay, Rihanna, great. Get to know more about Columbia and what aspect to focus on in the application. Good, good. Thank you. These are all great responses. Having concrete goals and have a definite outlook. Good, Rahul. Good. Academic performance through low GMAT professionals. Wait, that's the wrong, looking at the wrong part here. Demonstrate how you leverage CBS's location and resources. Great, Simon. Good. Okay. In this webinar, I've given you the requirements of a successful Columbia application. I've also given you the reason each and every element is necessary for success. What I can't give you is the how, or at least how to apply this general advice, this framework, to your specific situation, because your specific situation is individual. Helping you to produce that authentic reflection of your achievements and dreams requires individual advising with an experienced, accepted MBA admissions professional. We want to guide you in showing that you both belong at Columbia or whichever MBA programs you're aiming for and stand out in the applicant pool. We want to advise you in creating applications that accomplish everything we've discussed here today. And to do so, you need to engage with accepted staff of highly experienced admissions professionals. We've talked about access. This is what you can access when you do so. You can access experience and expertise. You can reduce your stress, save time, optimize your application, and apply with confidence that you're presenting yourself at your best. Now, some may say that accepted seems expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff. But our fees are peanuts compared to the cost of an MBA. And furthermore, there are expensive and less obvious risks associated with not using accepted. There's the cost of reapplication if you do end up reapplying. There's one, and if you do have to reapply, there's an additional year of pre-MBA earnings, and that can easily cost you in the 5 figures in dollars. There's potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network. I'll let you calculate that cost. Every year we work with applicants who talked to us a year earlier and decided after taking the do-it-yourself approach and getting rejected to work with us. They would have been better off working with us initially, and so would you. But enough from me. What do accepted clients say? I wanted to thank you for all your help. I couldn't have done it without it. I couldn't have done it without it, meaning the help, accepted to Columbia and Booth. Very happy to tell you that I have been accepted to Columbia. Thanks so much for your help along the way. Your insight and careful critiquing of my essays truly did the trick. I think the best compliment I can give is a recommendation, and indeed I had a friend contact me to ask for advice after I was accepted, and I let her know that you helped me. Thanks again. And that last one is from somebody in a very geeky, overrepresented group in the applicant pool who worked with Cindy Tokumitsu. The first one was from a client who worked with Esmeralda Cardinal. Now here's what I'd like you to do after the Q&A. It's now early December. You can still get your Columbia Business School application in by the January 4th deadline, which is the Merit Fellowship deadline. It's not the final deadline, but it is the Merit Fellowship deadline. Contact us ASAP because it is mid-December. We'd be happy to help you from scratch or review and edit your essays. Our goal is to guide you so that you present all 4 parts of the critical framework that I discussed today and show that you both belong at Columbia and are a standout in the applicant pool. Take these steps. Visit accepted.com/inatcbs. Choose the service for you, get the guidance you need, and then apply confidently and effectively. If you take these steps to work with an accepted admissions consultant, and you can have the kind of experience and success that these clients have had. I also want to remind you of the special offer for webinar registrants, and here it is again, $150 off any offer over $1,000, any purchase over $1,000. And again, you have through December 15th to take advantage of it. The coupon code is MBA Now. And I'd like to introduce now for the Q&A two consultants who have joined me. Natalie Greenblatt Epstein, who has helped Acceptance clients gain acceptance to Columbia Business School and other top MBA programs since 2008. Prior to that, she was admissions director at Cornell Johnson and the University of Michigan's MBA programs. Also, Jennifer Bloom is here with me. She's been helping Acceptance clients get accepted to Columbia and other top MBA programs since 1998. She's one of our most senior consultants. And from her location in Israel, she works with many of our clients located in the Eastern Hemisphere, especially in India. So let me make sure they are unmuted. I also want to mention again that we're going to, unless you tell us that you don't want to be unmuted, that you don't have a mic or whatever, we're going to unmute you as we select your questions. All right, so let's go. Okay, here we go. Ahmed asks, actually, Ahmed, I'm going to unmute you. I said I would. I'm going to do that. This is fairly new for us. Okay, can you ask your question, Ahmed?
Oh, so I actually had a hi everybody, and thanks for unmuting me. I actually had a small question. So I'm from Pakistan, and I just had a small question that if none of the blue chip companies operate in your respective country, which is the case for Pakistan, I mean, McKinsey actually started operating, I think, a year back. But if those companies don't operate in your country, but you do work in, let's say, the largest company in your country, then like that's the part that I'm struggling with, because I mean my GPA is 4.0. I have a good GMAT. I'm a Fulbright scholar I did my master's from Georgia Tech, but that's the part that I'm struggling with the most. So yeah, that was my question. Thanks.
Okay. See, Jennifer, you muted yourself. Natalie, you muted yourself. Can you unmute yourself? I will answer that. If you're from Pakistan and you studied in Georgia, you definitely have international and multicultural experience. And if you're working also, I mean, definitely. And if you're working in a large corporation in Pakistan and through your work in this large corporation, you have also international exposure. I don't know if there you're working with other entities in different countries, then that's again international experience. So I would say yes. Okay, now, okay, Natalie, you are now unmuted. Jennifer, you're unmuted. You want to add?
Natalie, do you want to take this first?
I honestly, I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
The question is, Ahmed, I'll just read what you wrote. I'm from Pakistan, attended Georgia Tech as a Fulbright scholar. Does that count as international multicultural experience? He says the large corporations don't work in like McKinsey is not, or just started in Pakistan. Other large corporations are not headquartered in Pakistan, but he works for the largest company in Pakistan. Can he count his Fulbright scholarship and studies in the U.S. as international experience?
I would say absolutely. I would have counted it as a director. So I would say yes, that is definitely international experience.
Yes. Jennifer?
I also, I just want to add that each person from the country that they hail from they're measured on who they are and what they've done. Columbia in particular, as we know, as you mentioned in the webinar, is looking for times where you've made a difference. So it doesn't matter that even if your difference is only in Pakistan and you actually have had international experience. So identify the areas where the times where you've seen an opportunity and you've seized it and you've made a difference. And that's how you're going to impress Columbia. It's not what companies are in Pakistan, it's what you've done with the opportunities that you've found and taken advantage of.
Great point. Okay, thank you both. All right, now this is from, if I mispronounce somebody's name, please don't Don't hold it against me. I apologize. Santyendra asks, can we write about someone not from business, such as sports team captain, in the third essay?
Love it.
Okay, Jennifer.
No
That's
one
Jennifer.
wants to read another essay about Steve Jobs. So
Actually,
yes.
Jennifer.
And the
Okay.
key there really is to explain how you've learned from him and how him or her, and how that's really reflected in your leadership or the kind of way that you operate in teams.
Okay. And Ellie, you want to add anything?
No, I would love it too. I mean, captains, coaches, think outside the box. So if you've learned from somebody else about leadership, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to understand this person or know this person personally, but if they've had an effect on you, then by all means talk about that individual. Who inspires you?
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. Louise, I'm going to unmute you. Give me a second. Okay. You have a question about a GMAT floor. Go ahead. You there? No. Okay, he muted himself. I'm just going to read it then. Thank you for this indeed. What would you say is a GMAT floor under which you would advise someone do not even think about applying to CBS? Even though the applicant's GPA is excellent. He has worked and studied in South America and the UK, currently works at a bulge bracket American investment bank in Chile, and comes from a country such as Bolivia. Anybody want to, Natalie, you want to take a stab at that one?
You know, I like every admissions director will say there is no floor. I mean, if you look at the middle 80% range, I think that's a pretty good basis for what they're willing to accept. But remember that, you know, there's 10% below that middle 80% range.
Right.
So if you know you're a really interesting candidate and they know that you're going to be able to succeed in the program academically, then you may as well go for it, because there is still that bottom 10% that they admit. We just don't know what that number is because they rarely give their full ranges.
Natalie, do you have any? Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I would add to that is you have to be cautious. First, if you're from an underrepresented country, then it almost certainly makes sense to apply, as long as there's other evidence that you're going to be able to do the program. The only caveat I would add to that is that if you're going to say that you're aiming for a post-MBA goal for an industry that does use GMAT in its recruiting process, then you'd be shooting yourself in the foot. Either returning to your current employer or an industry that isn't necessarily going to be using GMAT in its recruiting process is a better option. But I like Natalie, I don't think that there's, for an underrepresented group, country, I don't think that there's really a floor.
Especially one with you know, great grades and work experience. It's highly competitive. The other thing I was thinking is maybe you want to consider taking the GRE. Or the EA, which Columbia does accept. Somebody asked about that. Columbia does accept the EA. And see, you know, what, if you can't do better on that exam. That would be another option for you. Okay, and I would also agree that, I mean, this is again where kind of individual advising comes in. You know, was your quant score great and your verbal score terrible? How bad was it? You know, that kind of thing. All right, let's go. The next question. Another question on international work experience from Nandan. I'm going to try and unmute you. And you can speak your up again. You are muted yourself. All right, I can't do anything. The question is, hello, I have a question on international experience. Does working on an international client assignment without moving out of the country count as international experience? How does one elaborate on this? Jennifer, you want to take this one first?
Well, I actually don't find that you have to have international
Right.
experience, but I also would say, any kind of time where you stretched yourself and you did something that is outside of your comfort zone in terms of cultural differences, interacting with people that are different from you can also have the same, lend credence to the idea that you will be able to adapt in an environment like Colombia, where it is so international and it is so diverse.
Okay, Jennifer, if you have anything to add?
Natalie.
No, I'm sorry.
But I actually
I'll get this eventually.
That is exactly what Columbia is looking for. They're just looking for your ability to, work on a team with others who are different than you. So if you've got examples of that, that would be great.
All right, here's a question from Nina. Thank you for the webinar. What candidates are better suited for the J term versus the August intake? Natalie, you want to start with that one? And I really do mean Natalie.
Yeah. I will start with that because I've had a number of clients that have been well suited for J term. I think because J term doesn't allow for the summer internship, although they do allow for in-semester internships where you're working while you're going to school. It's suited for people that really don't want to make a big jump in their career. They want to stay in the same industry, maybe not the same company, but within that same industry or just overarching umbrella. It's great for people who want to get back to work pretty quickly. So it's been well suited to people that come from family business or who are going into family business. And you're basically getting the same program. You're just going all the way through. So that intensity is there. And if you're up for that intensity where you don't have a break in your school year other than the winter break and spring break, then I think it's a great program to shoot for. So, and everybody, all my clients that have gone through it have loved it. So.
Okay, Jennifer?
No, nothing to add. Yeah.
Okay. So here's a question from Lloyd, who wants to stay muted, so I'm not going to try and unmute him. If I have a below average GPA at the lower end of the middle 80th percentile, how many additional courses would you recommend I take to show current academic proficiency? Jennifer, you want to start with that?
Well, I would want the GMAT to also demonstrate the intellect.
Right.
So let's assume that the GMAT is where I want it to be. My estimate would be probably 2, 3, maybe 4. It really depends on how bad and over how long a period of time the GPA, meaning sometimes you can recalculate the GPA and you realize it's really 1 year that was bad, or some kind of requirements that this person was obligated to take that were completely out of his or her sphere of actual study and just not something that they had the capability to do, but also has nothing to do with business school. So I certainly wouldn't want the courses that demonstrate poor performance in undergrad to be quant based, right? But I would imagine that with 2, 3, or 4 courses being able to show consistent, strong performance, that should be plus a higher GMAT. That would be able to convince me that you can perform in this very challenging program.
Okay, Natalie?
I think it depends on the classes. Because if you're not doing well in, say, pre-med classes, I don't think that the school's going to care all that much. But if you didn't do well in an economics course, you're going to want to retake economics. I think this is a very individual question, and we'd probably need to look at that transcript to actually give you the advice that you need. And I don't know, Jennifer, do you agree with that? I'd like to see the transcript.
Well, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to say. This is such an individualized thing. Sometimes it's one class, sometimes it's no classes, and we just, suggest you take a pre-MBA curriculum like core through HBS or MBA math. So it's really very dependent on what we see on the transcript.
Okay, we have 2 more questions I'm going to take. They're both really good ones. One is from Rihanna. Okay, Rihanna asks, do we need to rewrite all the essays while reapplying, and would you recommend someone with below 690 GMAT apply? Does the IB industry use GMAT for recruitment? The answer to the last question is yes. Anyway, Natalie, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, so yes, you need to rewrite the questions. Some of them are different than last year, but you need to rewrite the questions because I think if you're using the same question, it's going to show up as being kind of lazy. So, and the school has access to last year's application. So if they're going to look at it and compare and see that you've like just basically said the exact same thing, then why should they admit you this year if nothing's changed? So you really need to talk about things that you've done that you've improved on. So for example, with your goals, maybe you've done more research into your goals, more networking. You have honed that goal. So yes, you need to you need to rewrite the essays. And then the second question is, well, Linda said, yes, IB looks at the GMAT. So I would suggest you retake it. But if you're looking at going into IB, and if you've already, again, this is sort of an individualized thing. So I need to look at the entire picture for your academics to actually advise you correctly. But
Jennifer? Yeah.
I would probably retake it. So
Okay,
go ahead.
thanks, Natalie.
Yeah, I agree. It only makes sense to rewrite the essays. It's not about the writing. It's about having new stories to tell. And if they weren't convinced that you had something to contribute to the class last year, submitting the same essays isn't going to convince them that you now have something. I would really want to find out what you've been doing this year and how, convince me that you'll contribute something and we're going to benefit from having you in the class.
The schools want to know that you're a growing, dynamic individual. And if you basically submit the same thing, you're not showing that. You're also not showing much commitment just to the process, which they're rather proud of. So, yes. All right. So thank you, Rihanna, for the question. And then the last question is from Kwaku. And okay, he's also muted. If you unmute yourself, you can speak your question. If not, I will do so. All right.
Yeah, hi.
It's me. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so I just have a question. Because I spoke with them and they said they get like a flood of about 1,000 applications on January 3rd. So I was wondering, is it like really advantageous to apply for the merit deadline? Because I know there's not a lot of time between now and then, and I really want to like kind of do a little bit more research, really write like really good essays. But I'm kind of afraid that like a lot of the class will be taken up. As I just want to know how important it is to kind of get it by the January 3rd merit deadline, even if, yeah, I just want to know. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Columbia is one that does rolling admissions. The earlier, the better. It's, obviously you want to do a good job though. So it's a give and take. You want to do it as fast as you can, as well as you can.
And
Natalie?
I would say if you can't submit a great application by the January 3rd deadline, then delay because you want to submit a great application. So so do the research and delay. If you don't really need the scholarship to be considered for scholarship, then do a great job. Because if you don't do a great job, you're going to get denied.
Right. You're not going to get the fellowship and you won't get the acceptance either.
Right.
I have what I modestly call Linda's rule. Apply to the earliest round possible. And obviously Columbia doesn't have rounds. provided you don't compromise the quality of your application. So, while Columbia doesn't have rounds, it does have this merit deadline, and I think the same principle applies. Okay. All right, so at this point, I want to thank Natalie and Jennifer for helping me out here. I want to thank you for coming, for your questions, your time, and attention. And I have a final thought and a little story. The thought: there is a paradox inherent to acceptance at top business schools. You have to demonstrate that you both fit in and stand out. By fitting in, I mean that you belong at the target school, in this case, Columbia, in terms of your goals, academics, work experiences, and values. You need to show that you're going to be a valuable member of Columbia's community. That's parts 1 through 3 of my framework. And by standing out, you just stand out in a highly qualified, intensely competitive, and talented applicant pool. That's part 4. You need to show that you're going to contribute distinctively and add a special something to the community. To get a little poetic about it, the admissions committees look at their class like a mosaic, and each student has to be a distinctive hue in the picture that's being created. And now here's the story. This from an accepted consultant. Here's his analysis of one client's situation. Let's call him Raj. Now, the consultant wrote, I helped Raj get into Columbia and Sloan and Booth this season after he failed to get into Wharton, Sloan, and Booth last year. His situation was a very good example of why even excellent candidates need guidance to help them into top business schools. His previous applications did a very poor job presenting him to admissions committees. He didn't take advantage of his very international background. He didn't emphasize his leadership and career-related stories, and he chose topics poorly from events long ago and from events of little interest to admissions committees. Pointing him in the right direction and guiding him down that path brought him multiple acceptances this year, even though little had changed in his candidacy from the previous year. So if you want a reliable guide on this journey who will kindly give you insightful, trustworthy, and necessary feedback to help you get into your favorite schools and pursue your dream career, follow the steps on the screen. Follow the steps on the screen, which are the steps taken, well, they're not on the screen now, but you saw them before, which are the steps taken by the clients you've heard from. They sought acceptance help, applied confidently and successfully. They're now pursuing their dreams. Follow their well-trodden path, and you can pursue yours too.